Overwatch 2 is dead. It's dead. This was what Overwatch 2 was.
Deliver on a product, an overhype a product to get them out of a tumultuous time, which led to disaster for the game itself.
We stopped making Overwatch content for years! For years! Screw over all the creators, the players, everything! Everything!
Which begs the philosophical question that would have Socrates scratching at his noggin. What the fuck is Overwatch 2 then?
What that means is that we won't be delivering that dedicated hero mode with talent trees, that long-term power progression. Those things just aren't in our plans anymore. And we know that this is going to be disappointing to many of you, which is why we wanted to bring it up before we talked about the roadmap. And to be perfectly honest, it's been really difficult for many of us and a lot of folks on the team who poured their heart and soul into that.
So, as you've likely heard by now, Overwatch 2 PvE is not coming. Or at least, it's not coming in the form that we expected it to. I'm not going to spend too long covering what's happening with the PvE itself, since if you're watching this, you likely already know, but if you don't, then as a quick rundown, the devs in a livestream yesterday revealed that there will no longer be a large PvE expansion for Overwatch 2, with the progression system and talent trees being completely scrapped. In other words, the features that gave PvE its depth and its interesting look, like Mei having an icy boulder ball, are gone. And that was really the coolest part of the PvE experience. Instead, we're going to be drip-fed story-based PvE missions over time, starting in Season 6, which I assume is going to be similar to the Overwatch Retribution and Uprising missions, which were fun for a bit, but this drastically underdelivers on the expectations that we had as a community for what Overwatch 2 is about. As some creators have rightfully pointed out, what is the point of naming Overwatch 2 Overwatch 2 anymore? Creators like Donkey have said that the Overwatch PvP update is just Overwatch 1.1 and that the real juice is what the devs have been working on for the past 2 to 3 years. That's what Overwatch 2 was marketed as. But now we know there's no big PvE expansion. What was the point in calling Overwatch 2 Overwatch 2? To avoid beating a dead horse, Moist Critical already covered this in his own Overwatch 2 video by covering the GameSpot interview with Aaron Keller, but in short, Aaron thinks that the roadmap in Overwatch 2 and the changes from Overwatch 1 to Overwatch 2 justify the sequel in Overwatch 2's name, which is at best debatable to say the least. The meme on screen shows that pretty well. People should without a doubt complain for the misleading narrative and expectations that higher ups at Blizzard were pushing with the dodgy marketing of Overwatch 2 and failing to deliver on expectations as well. Blizzard deserve a lot of critique for that. You may have remembered the NDA meeting in December 2021, where a bunch of creators got promised big things and were shown the true potential of Overwatch 2. Well, a very important tweet from Tomito confirms that what they were shown in that private meeting is clearly not what we have now. Moneyfolder quote tweets an old tweet of his about how he's jokingly gonna go start a GoFundMe to cover the legal fees of any creator willing to break their NDA. Sumito, one of the people who went to the secret private NDA meeting, replied with a smiley face. Then, Mars Muse replies with, "Something tells me you aren't getting what you promised." And then, the nail in the coffin, Sumito tweets out more smiley faces, indirectly confirming that the vision of Overwatch 2 right now is a lot worse than the vision that Sumito and other creators had back in that 2021 meeting. Now, this is definitely a valid critique, without a doubt. But I do actually want to give somewhat of a nuanced take here, and I know some of you can't handle a bit of nuance, and you love it when your favourite streamer goes full Doomer mode, but let's be real about this. Back in my last Overwatch discussion based video, I mentioned the idea of criticism being valid, but not necessarily significant or meaningful. I put a clip of the YouTuber Cosmonaut Variety Hour explaining this idea.
The third is, yeah, you're right, but like, it's not that big a deal. So get over it.
And I think the same applies here too. Think about it. Overwatch 2 right now is doing decently well player base wise. We have a clear roadmap of content, which I'll get onto, and drip feeding even more PvE content will only ensure long-term sustainability for the current player base. The majority of people playing Overwatch 2 right now are doing it for the multiplayer, same as with any other FPS on the market. Rainbow Six Siege, CSGO, Valorant, TF2, Apex. Do you think these games are alive because of their PvE? No, they're alive because of their multiplayer. Now, will Overwatch never reach its full potential? Sure. Will this alienate some of the player base and some of the people who are waiting for the PvE to drop? Sure. And is this still a massive disappointment on Blizzard's end? 110%. but the existing Overwatch player base will not shrink because PvE is cancelled, which, by the way, it technically isn't even fully cancelled, but just being implemented in smaller doses over a longer time frame. Now, I know some of you are going to be furiously typing in the comment section about how you are only going to play Overwatch because of the PvE, and how Overwatch is missing out on a large PvE player base, and sure, I could agree with the second statement. But if you genuinely think most players are going to stop playing Overwatch because there's not a large PvE expansion, then you are straight up delusional. If you're in the loud minority of people who happen to stop playing Overwatch because of the PvE, sure, go ahead, cry in my comment section, cry on Twitter, I'm definitely going to read what you're saying. I'm obviously not going to sit here and say Overwatch is in some kind of amazing state and that it's as big as Valorant, but it's certainly far from dead. Generally, the way that I like quantifying whether something is dead or alive is with how content creators are doing view-wise, and YouTube content for the majority of Overwatch creators is still comfortably pulling 6-digit view counts and 6-digit figures. Flats, J3, Super, Emong, Argay, you name the creator, they're likely doing well. Even myself, I'm eating decently this month. To summarise this section, I think the recent Group Up podcast that SVB dropped really hits on the reality of how disappointing this is for the Overwatch community without stating or dooming on how the Overwatch IP is all of a sudden dead.
I'm not like overly pessimistic, but we all know the heights this game could have reached if they executed on the different plan. I'm not too sad, just disappointed, I guess, of the lost potential.
I think at this point, pointing the fingers at who's accountable or whatever, it doesn't matter. It is what it is, and I commend the team for having the courage to come out and do this. It needed to happen, and obviously best of luck going forward. I'm not going to sit here and be like, oh, I hope the game dies. No, dude, this game has been fantastic. I still think it has the best game atmosphere of a shooter that I've loved. I love the pacing of it. I love like just the visuals, how characters feel, and it really is a testament to how great of a IP Overwatch is.
Overwatch 2, the name, you could argue, is dead because a large part of Overwatch 2 was that PvE, but that doesn't really matter if the core IP is still alive, which it still is, and still will be. And to end off the video, I want to briefly cover the Overwatch 2 roadmap. Next season, we have some goofy looking events which are really ambiguous, who knows what they're gonna be. Really, Season 5 hasn't got much meat to it. A cinematic is cool and all, but we're going to get some mediocre limited time events, a recycled Summer Games event, and they're bringing back features like the On Fire system, which was already part of Overwatch 1. It's Season 6, however, that looks the most exciting. The story missions and the new support hero are big additions to Overwatch, especially considering how Dogwater Lifeweaver was on release. I'm hoping the story missions are just a bit more juicy than the PvE stuff we've gotten before, which, whilst they were cool, the novelty of things like Junkenstein's Revenge wore off pretty quickly. The Firing Range edition is cool, I hope we're getting something similar to what Rainbow Six Siege has, and the new map Flashpoint would also be a welcome addition. Two more things to note in Season 6 is the Hero Mastery, which I'm curious as to what that could mean, and the player progression system, which is interesting as well. Obviously, the name gives flashbacks to the progression system for PvE, but I wonder what PvP implementation that could have in the game. What's really unfortunate though is that the Hog rework is getting pushed back to Season 7 and beyond, which is really worrying for Hog players because that means their hero is going to be trash for at least 5 more months before the devs decide to finally give him some utility. So that's really it for the video. As a conclusion or summary, it's not Jova, ladies and gentlemen. I tweeted out that even though the news that some of the PvE features, like the talent tree, are being scrapped, and that is super disappointing, the game is still going to be fine long term. Trust me, I bet that in 1 to 3 months, hell even 1 to 3 years, the game is still going to be fine. Screw ABK and the core post higher up, because the dev team and Team 4 don't really deserve the hate they've been getting. If anyone's to be blamed, it's the people at the top in their corporate suits who are out of touch with the community. Not to mention, I feel bad for Aaron Keller inheriting the shit show that was left behind by Kaplan, and I hope Team 4 can push through in the coming months. Let me know what you think down below, and try not to type an essay. Shout out to my Tier 1 and Tier 3 patrons, and until next time.